Really well, don't you?
Good morning. Thank you for all the nice words you say about me. I'll pay you back. What was I going to say? I feel a very heavy responsibility this morning because your offering next week will depend on what I say. And if the offering is low, the pastors won't be paid. I'll probably have to send some food parcels to him. Thank you very much for having me. There was an Irish political activist in London. He took a wooden box, put it on the corner of a street, stood up and railed against the government. In the process, he said some seditious things. The police arrested him, charged him, and he was convicted, jailed for a year. After a year, he was released. He went back to the same corner of the street, put a box there. By this time, the crowd recognized him. They all gathered around him. He stood up and he said, "As I was saying before, I was interrupted." I can't say that because I forgot what I said last year. But I'm going to just share with you something from the Word of God. Let's look at 1 Timothy 1:5. As I was saying, we turn to the Bible, 1 Timothy 1:5. The aim of our church is love that issues from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. I repeat, the aim of our church is love that issues from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. I went to a church in Singapore one time. At the end of the service, one of the elders stood up and said, "This church grows by eating." Oh, I like that. This church grows by eating. I actually said to my leaders, I think we should adopt that tagline for our church. This church grows by eating. A lot of things start to spark in my head. Well, we grow by eating physical food. We grow by taking the communion. We grow by eating spiritual food. And so many things. We all grow by eating. There's a saying about food, or not food, about eating. It says, we are what we eat. We are what we eat. There are a lot of people here who follow that doctrine very closely. We are what we eat. Back when we were children, we had all sorts of nonsense, but we turned out all right still. But there is a truth in that, some truth in that statement. But that is not altogether true. We are also what we think, isn't it? Because what we think affects our body as well, and our life, and many other issues. But I think that does not say completely what we as Christians or people who seek to follow the Lord, Christian disciples. I think a more, relevant statement for us is, we are what we love. We are what we love. Because what we love, we become more like the thing or the person that we love. Isn't that true? That's why there's all these Michael Jackson wannabes, right? They think the more they listen to the music and the more they like the person, the more they idolize that person, they become what they love. And that is what I want to say here today. That the real aim of our teaching, our charge, our instruction, our doctrine is love. And we are what we love, not what we know. So much of our Christian discipleship has concentrated on the teaching. And there is nothing wrong with that, because teaching is to inform our mind, and there is a value to that. But we must go further than that, because we realize that giving people teaching alone is not enough. It must somehow affect their heart and make them love. So I had a pastor friend who came to my church, and he said, there's enough teaching here and instruction here to convert Satan into a saint. But you know where he's coming from. He's just saying that we can come to a place where we learn a lot without having that effect upon our heart, which causes us to love. Some things in God are, at some stage, it is an aim. It is a goal. But a goal can be turned into a means to reach a higher goal or a larger goal. Now, can you understand that? Some aims or some purposes can be turned into a means to a larger goal or larger purpose. And teaching is like that. Teaching is a good goal to have in the church. Teaching is instructing the saints in discipleship is crucial, but it must not remain there. The teaching must lead us further to a higher goal, which is to love. God is a God of purpose. When you look at creation story, it bears that out. See, God made the earth, sky, day and night, land, sea, animals, the vegetation, fish and birds. God had a purpose for creation. In the beginning, we look at Him creating that creation. It looks like it is His purpose to have a creation, which is okay, right? I mean, it's quite clear. But when He has finished all that creation, He created man. Then you realize that all this while, all what He was doing the 5 days or 5.5 days was to create an environment to sustain man. So creation, the purpose, has now become a means to support a higher purpose, which was man. And it's interesting, when something is doing what it was created to do, God says it is good. So what is good? Good is when things that God had a purpose for is functioning in that purpose, then that thing is good. So when a man is supposed to be a man, function like a man, that's good. When a man is not doing that, that's not so good. So these things of God's creation order tells us that He has plans or purposes, or goals for the things He created. And when they are doing what He created them to do, then He says good. And so when He saw man, He says very good. Why? Because with man, it's somehow when man reaches the purpose for which he was created, all the other things that were brought into place and which supported him, they realized their greater function. And therefore, when God saw man, He said it was very good. So you see, we all realize that God has a purpose. God is a God of purpose. God has a purpose for our life. He did not make us, just because He got nothing to do. In fact, He had a very purposeful plan for us. And so, what we see in the Bible, what that plan is, we can get a clue, or if you want to know what is God's purpose, it can be found in this clue. He said the purpose of our teaching, doctrine, or instruction. What is the purpose for that instruction or that doctrine is also the purpose for our life. So the aim of our teaching in Christian discipleship then is twofold. To give us knowledge, and also to inspire love in our heart through the Holy Spirit, to love. What to love? We'll come to that afterwards. But you see, knowledge is important. I'm not trying to devalue teaching in the Bible. I mean, teaching of the Bible in the church. But you read 1 Corinthians 13 verse 2. It says, Paul says like this, and if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, but have not love, I am nothing. So knowledge without love is nothing. So a Christian preacher, if he preaches to you good instructions, or things from the Bible, and leave that alone, then Paul said that's nothing. Knowledge is secondary to love. He said, if I don't have love, if I have all those prophetic knowledge, but I don't have love, then that is nothing. You can get a lot more knowledge through love. You can get a lot more knowledge through love. One way I try to say is like this. You can't just have your knowledge alone may not lead to love. Okay? But if we have love, we will have a lot of the right knowledge. I hope that's clear. You remember, you know of the story of now we have to call him African American. In my time we just say black. That's very racialistic. But what do you call him? African American. George Washington Carver. He was a scientist, and he sat before the lab and said, God, you make this whole world. Teach me about the world. And God said to him, well, this is too big for your small brain, something to that effect. So he stopped there. Then he put another question to God. You made man. Tell me about man. Why you make man and what man is made of and so forth. Then they said, that's also too big for your brain, for your mind. So he's in the area in America where there's a lot of these peanuts grown. So he had a peanut in his lab. He said, God, you make this lab. And you make this peanut. Tell me what I can do with this peanut. And out of that, God said, that's more like it. Right? So God began to show him what he could do with the little humble peanut. And out of it, they say there are about 300 products from that one single peanut. He made peanut paint, or paint based from peanut products and so on. A few other things as well. All in 300 things. And he made this statement. If you love something long enough, it will yield all its secrets. I say that again. If you love something long enough, it will yield all its secrets. So it's really saying that if we should know some things first. Huh? But there is a way in which we know things or gain knowledge through love. I read many years ago, someone said that, I better be careful because it doesn't happen all the time, but ideally, this guy said that education should just not impart knowledge to you. Say, if I teach you mathematics, you learn a lot about mathematics. He said, that's not what it, well, that's good, but that's not enough. He said, the real way in which we educate is to teach mathematics in such a way that you will love mathematics. And people who are great mathematicians are not those people who just learn about mathematics. They become great mathematicians because they love mathematics. There's a lot of difference, isn't it? But I know I've been to school, they taught me everything I'm not I didn't like any one of the subjects. But that's a very high ideal. We should learn. We should be very passionate about what we learn. That's what he's trying to say. To a point, say if each of us can inspire other people to love a particular subject, that will be even better. So from love you can have knowledge. So the purpose of our teaching is to impart the love of God and to inspire believers to love, so that we may fulfill the two great commandments in the Bible, to love God and to love our neighbor. That's the sum of what we are teaching, Paul is saying. And this love is peculiar, it's one of a kind, it's God kind, the God kind of love. It is not an ordinary love. There are many types of love, but this kind of love that issues from a pure heart. That kind of love is not common, it's an uncommon love. It's only come about because of the Spirit of God. So, I point out to you now 3 characteristics of this unique love of God. The love of God, number 1, the love of God and the love for the neighbor are one and the same love. It's not 2 different kinds of love. It's powered by the same love of God. It's not that we love God, there's one kind, and then love our neighbor. When we love God, it will always lead us to love the neighbor. You cannot separate the 2. That's why John said, if you love God, you cannot hate your brother. It's just not possible, because that's not that kind of love. So, the second thing, this love of God is one fruit of the Spirit. It's the fruit of the Spirit, but it plays out in 9 different ways. Galatians 5 tell us that the love, but the fruit of the Spirit, 5:22, you know that. But the fruit of the Spirit is love. It's only one fruit only. It's not love. Or it's not the fruits of the Spirit It's only one. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and so on. They are not 9 fruits of the Spirit. It's one fruit. And these 9 are connected. The original writer, an old 18th century writer, used a word that only in the computer industry has resurfaced again. He used the concatenating. Concatenating. It's a big word. Lost many years, then the computer, people who use the Excel sheet use that again. It's one of the functions found in Excel sheet. Concatenating. Have I got it right? Alright. It means connected. What he's trying to say is that you cannot have love and hate somebody. If you have love, or rather put it this way, you cannot have love and no peace. The fruit of the Spirit is love. When you love, it will also cause you to have peace as well. In other words, what he's trying to say is that all these 9 things is one fruit. And you cannot have one without the other. They all are connected together. So you cannot say, I grow in love, but I don't have peace. No, it can't work that way. The way the fruit of the Spirit works is, if you have love, you must have all the other things as well. So that's how this fruit of the Spirit, or this love of God, is different from all the other kinds of love. The non-Christian can love and be impatient. It's all right for them because that's the non-Christian love. The non-Christian can love and be bad because one of the fruit of the Spirit we say is good and they can be bad, but not the Christian. You cannot love and lack joy. If you love, joy comes part of the package. You cannot love and lack peace because it just doesn't work that way. That's what God is saying. You cannot love and lack self-control. Someone cannot say to you, "Oh, I love you," but he has little self-control or no self-control. He cannot control himself. It cannot work like that. If you have love, you also have self-control. You control yourself. You don't get angry all the time. Now, the third thing about this characteristic of the love of God, the love of God really is not a means or an aim. The love of God, in the light of what I'm saying, is really the ultimate. We love God for who He is. God is not a means to something else. Do you know that? God is where everything ends. The love of you love God for who He is. You love God for itself. True, I can tell you we can go to God and get all sorts of things. Healing, deliverance, blessing, money, prosperity, everything you want, you can, God can give you all that. But that is He blessing you. But if you say you love God, a man loving God, you must love God for who He is. We must love God for Himself alone. That's very difficult to get across to some Christians, I noticed that. Because we are so used to think that we come to God to get something. God is our means to our prosperity. God becomes a means to our well-being. Please, I do believe that we should have good things from God. But when we say we love God, it must be for Himself and it ends there. Nothing more, because that's the ultimate. He is not a means. He is the end of all ends. He is the goal of all goals. He is where everything ends. Terminate in. That is the love of God. We have sometimes talk about that love of God in such a way like you have experienced this. Somebody come up to you and say, "Oh, I love you, brother, but he has some other ulterior motive in mind," and you don't like that. You feel you are being used. You approach God like that, you think He'll feel happy? He also feel lousy like you do, because you are being used. "Yeah, I love you, I love you." I met some people, they say, "Oh, brother, I love you, I love you." They have in mind to use my church for his evangelistic crusade. Well, after he got a place, he forgot about me. And I tried to say, "Hey, where's all these professions of love? They're all gone now." You have, sorry to say, but not all pastors are like that, right, David? There's some good ones, right? Who love you for who you are. And by the same token, love your neighbor for their sake. It ends there. There's nothing more. That is difficult. And this is why, as a church, when we grasp that, we are so different from the rest of other people. Everybody loves to gain something. Everybody loves to fit their agenda. But can we all, as a community of believers, love each other for who we are? Because it's the same love. It's not a different kind of love. If we say that of God, that we love God for who He is, by Himself, then we should love each other for that reason as well. So you see what a great challenge is. Everybody come in here with needs. And we need the network to get things going on in our life, right? People use people. That's what the world is, right? But we have to realize that the love of God is different. It's uncommon. It's not the ordinary type, it's the extraordinary type. And so this is what the aim of our teaching is. So that we not only hear, learn something, but we are working hard to love people for who they are, to love our neighbor for themselves. But we have a problem. He said, it's love out of a pure heart. But our hearts is a messy heart. It needs to be purified. Because it's a collection of love. All sorts of love. It's a mixed bag of love. Christian discipleship is just not teaching to educate your mind. The teaching is partly to get rid of the wrong loves in our hearts and inspire us to love God rightly, to love God and to love our neighbor rightly. See, our heart is a collection of loves, right loves and wrong loves. Turn to 2 Timothy, which is the next episode, the next book in the reference I had this morning, 2 Timothy 3, verse 1. But understand this, that in the last days, there will come times of difficulty. For people, and he runs a long list of some pretty bad stuff. For people will be, all in here, you will find 5 loves. Okay, it may not appear that way, but some of them, in the ESV, you will see that clearly. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money. Lovers of self is phila autos, means you love your own self. Lovers of money, the original is lover of silver. Phila out something. Forgotten. Then, towards the end of verse 3, not loving good. People who love bad things. Some have even say, incapable of loving good. You can come to a point, it's just no longer a women fancy or something of a preference, but it becomes something so embedded in us. It becomes part of nature. We just simply have no capacity to love good things. Then verse 4, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure. These are the 4 wrong loves, rather than the lovers of God. This is where the Bible contrasts this love of God with all these different things there. It's if to say that no matter how, when you read it like that, when you put the love of God there, in contrast to all these dark, bad, lousy things, it just shines out. That in the last days, when in the midst of all this, where people become selfish, disobedient to parents, heartless, unpeaceable, and so all these things, he said, when you put the love of God in there, it shines brighter than ever before. And these are dark days. He says that these are difficult days. That in the last days there will come times of difficulty. A better word would be, these are dangerous days. See, as we sit here, it's as if there's a world crisis going on there. And we don't even know. A few months ago, I had to appear myself before the police because I was not involved, but I was connected with a particular event that riled up the Muslim community. They were all very upset. Certain words were used in an advertisement. By the way, I have no control over what was advertised, but that's what happened. And there was Muslims threatening, wanting to bomb the venue. They have said, we'll gather at one particular place, we'll make protests and so on. Just very noisy in the internet. We walked in, there was a group of Christians, about 2:30 we walked into the police station, and the police chief had already received about 32 reports against that particular event, and all of them are threatening action. So we walk through with the police, we explain to them what we are doing, why it's harmless, and it's all just a big misunderstanding. We went on like that, explain. And somewhere about 4 o'clock, the police chief said, "Do you know you have created a national crisis?" We have created a national crisis and we didn't even know. I tell you this, these are, some of us are like that. We all are in the church, but these are days of danger. These are dangerous times. A crisis is building up. We also sit here. But let me tell you what the crisis is. If you look at it, it's a crisis of what is love. If we can be lovers of God, then we are safe. Amen? This collection of loves, I know, it's talking about, if you read through, you get the idea that this is about non-Christians. But before you are quick to just label that these are Christians, non-Christians, it can be true that some of these things are talking about us as well. Our heart is a very deceitful heart. We don't know what's inside there. And there's some pressure, some suffering, the bad things are brought out. It says love from a pure heart. The aim of our teaching is love from a pure heart. How pure is our heart? I'm not asking us to be what we call heavy and to the point it becomes very, what's the word? I lost that word. Yeah, legalistic, but dour. But that's a bad word, dour. But we all become very gloomy people talking about holiness. And but it's enough to say that there are things in our heart that need to be cleaned up, isn't it? So, the mother of all the wrong loves there is actually the love of self. From it spring all the other wrong loves. Our hearts are filled with conflicting loves. So we need to get rid of wrong loves and cultivate the right kind of love. What are we going to do? The first thing I can suggest to you is fight love with love. Say that again. Fight love with love. Fight wrong love with the right kind of love. The right kind of love can overpower the wrong loves. Don't fight wrong love with law. It will never work. Somebody do wrong, tell him don't do it. Then as you pile up more rules for him, it's even harder for him to get it right. So don't fight wrong love with law, with rules. After all, you cannot legislate love. That's the simplest thing. I cannot issue a rule that we must love. It'll never work. Right? It becomes something different in the end. And so let the right kind of love, which is the love of God, to be stronger and stronger each day. You see, that's why Paul prayed that the Ephesian Christians will know the love of God. That's a prayer that we should always pray. That should be something that becomes a major part of our life. So that the love of God becomes so great that what Jesus said has come to pass, is that the love for your father or mother appears like hate. And that's what he's saying, that we all have different types of love, different degrees of love. But let the love of God be paramount so that all other loves pale in comparison. So we can all start small. An ounce of the true love of God is better than a ton of false love. Let me also help you by suggesting this second thing. Let us settle what is the one thing in our life. Psalm 27 verse 4 says, "One thing have I asked of the Lord." We all sing this verse in various forms in our praise and worship. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in His temple. Every one of us has a one thing in life. I repeat, every one of us has a one thing in our life. What is your one thing? Don't tell me lah, but think about it, reflect on it, and see whether that one thing is close to what is God's one thing. God also has one thing. He said, one thing is needed. Paul said, one thing I do, I press towards the mark of the high calling of God. All of us have one thing. What is my one thing? What is your one thing? I hope it's close to what the Bible's one thing is about. Because you may think you may have not. You don't have a one thing. You actually have. Somewhere, somehow, you have one. You just never thought about it. You don't even know what it is. But you have that one thing in life. It's good to think about it. It's good to reflect before God and find out what is that one thing in your life. And settle it once and for all with the Lord. What is going to be the one thing in your life? Can you say like what David said? One thing have I desired. It's not the throne, it's not the kingdom, it's not the wealth, it's not the status, it's not the power. One thing have I desired, and that's to seek God. What is Paul's one thing? He said, I want to seek God. Seek the high calling of God. I think the third thing I can suggest to you is to look at the cross often, because that is where we see in a vivid way the love of God for us. We can only love God when we know He loves us. We love Him because He first loved us. And for us as Christians, the cross is always a great place to start. When you come to the topic of the love of God, the love of God is shown very vividly through the cross. For God demonstrated, showcased His love for us, in that while we are yet sinners, Christ died for us. So we think much about the cross. That will help us to see the love of God. Then, of course, I have referred to the prayer that Paul referred to in Ephesians 3:17-19. He said that we may know what's the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that we may be filled with all the fullness of God. Well, we can pray. I pray that God will help me to see the love of God more and more. Because I am not defined by what I know. I'm defined by what I love. I want to be known as lover of God. And if we love God, we must love His people as well. Every church can be famous for something. I have said in Malacca, I said, let us be a church famous for the real love of God. That people know us because of the love of God. Not because of what we can do, but that God's love is shown there. The love of God is not something to talk about, but primarily to be displayed. I think when we realize that, then true, there'll be less talking about it, and there'll be more demonstration of the love of God. What is God's purpose? God has a purpose for every one of us. What is God's purpose in everything? In my opinion, the summation of all His teaching is so that we may love God and His people. That is the aim. That is the goal. Don't go and... There was this Argentinian man who explained how some people go shooting for the bulls. See, some people aim for the tail, some people aim for the leg, The only way to bring the bull down is to aim for the head. Are we aiming in the right place or not? With all our teaching, with all our instruction, with all our doctrine, we must aim for the right spot. And that is the love of God. Amen. Let's pray. Shall we all stand?